Hello, Darklings! So I've done a few videos in the past about my favorite literary sources and their subsequent film adaptations, and that includes The Phantom of the Opera, Dracula, and Frankenstein, and this is another one of my favorites, Alice in Wonderland, which is where my internet name comes from. So these books were published by Charles Dodgson, aka Lewis Carroll, in the 1880s, and they have been popular ever since. I don't think they've ever been out of print, and they have had many, many, many film adaptations. So there's two books. There's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Now, the first book is the one that people are more familiar with. It's the one where she falls down a rabbit hole. It's the one where she cries a river of tears, has a caucus race, drinks a bottle that says drink me, eats cookies that say eat me, grows, shrinks, talks to caterpillars, Cheshire cats, deals with a duchess and her pig baby, and has a mad tea party and plays flamingo croquet with the Queen of Hearts, and has a trial based off of stolen tarts. And there's the lobster quadrille, and there's the mock turtle's sad, sad song singing about beautiful soup. It's very strange, but it is also kind of the foundation of the literary movement known as nonsense literature, and it is popular with both adults and children because children love nonsense and adults like abstract logic. The second one, Through the Looking Glass, is the one where Alice is bored. A couple years later, she's playing with her cat Dinah's kittens, and then ends up being curious about the mirror over her mantle, falls through. She reads about a Jabberwocky that she can only read if she looks at it in the mirror because it's the mirror land. She talks to chess pieces. There's talking flowers. She meets the Red Queen, who shows her that she must run in order to stay in place. And if she makes it to the other side of the chessboard, she can become a queen as well. It's the one that has Tweedledee and Tweedledum. It's the one that has the White Knight that falls off his horse a lot. It's the one with Humpty Dumpty. It's the one where the White Queen believes that she can see the future but can't remember the past. And then once Alice becomes a queen, she hosts a party she didn't know she was hosting, throttles the Red Queen, and then puts the Red King in checkmate and thus winning the game so that she can wake up. So it's very confusing, and the first book is based primarily off of a deck of cards, and the second book is based primarily off of a chess game. And an extended metaphor goes through both about both of those playing things. So there have been many, many film adaptations, probably close to 100, and the ones that I have seen is the MGM live action adaptation from 1933, which was very strange and kind of frightening to see these people in costumes in black and white. There were a couple of silent films and another talkie before this one came out. There was a Betty Boop adaptation in 1934. There were several TV programs throughout the 40s and 50s. There was the very famous, probably the one that everyone knows, the 1951 Disney animated version that's mostly related to the first book, but has a couple of things such as Tweedledee and Tweedledum that pertain to the second book. There's several musical adaptations from the 60s and 70s and TV adaptations. And then the next one that I've seen, which would be Jan Svangmacher. I cannot speak Czech, so apologies if I have butchered that name. His very creepy, very brilliant stop-motion piece from 1988 just called Alice, which I have mentioned in at least 3 other videos, if not more. Mention it all the time because it's one of the most nightmare-inducing, most brilliant pieces of stop motion I've ever seen. I mean, he's known for that, and he's as known for it as the Brothers Quay, and he does some really amazing work, and that movie's very traumatizing with a taxidermied rabbit eating sawdust and creepy dolls and things that move around on their own. It's very spooky, but very good. The next adaptation I've seen, which is a TV movie from Britain, which is Alice Through the Looking Glass with Kate Beckinsale. That is fairly accurate to the second book, and I want to say it features Gene Wilder as the Mock Turtle. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it. I'm not as big on the Alice in Wonderland craze as I used to be, so apologies if my memory is a bit spotty. The next adaptation after that would be the sci-fi original mini-series Alice, which I did like quite a bit. It was good for one watch, but I don't think I'd ever watch it again. I mean, it was kind of it was a sci-fi adaptation, so Sci-Fi Channel original series are better than their original movies, but still not amazing. The next adaptation after that, from the same year, 2009, which would be Malice in Wonderland, which was actually kind of a pretty cool idea. They had some crazy sets, which was impressive for a film with very low budget. And kind of takes after this seedy Los Angeles, Las Vegas atmosphere. It was kind of clever. The next adaptation, which is also fairly famous and kind of infamous, and my least favorite of this director's work, which would be Alice in Wonderland from 2010 from Tim Burton. This movie makes me very angry in a lot of respects because I don't think it works for the story in the slightest, but that's my opinion. I know there are people that do like it, but it's one of my least favorite adaptations I've seen. It bothers me. There are bits here and there that I like. The fact that they decided to confuse the Red Queen and the Queen of Hearts really bothered me. That really did bug me, and I can't not be bugged by it. They had some strange casting choices and ideas that didn't make any sense. I did find it amusing that they included a snark and a Jabberwocky, which are two separate things from other works of Lewis Carroll. And I do appreciate Alice's armor when she fights the Jabberwocky. That armor was really well designed. The costume design for Alice in the movie was badass. But aside from that, it doesn't have a lot of merit, and it's so much CG, it has no soul, and kind of hurts. There were a few other adaptations after that, which would be Alice in Murderland, which I haven't watched. Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, which I think was fairly short-lived. I didn't watch, although I do watch Once Upon a Time. So, very bad, very, very bad quality CG with good costuming, if it's anything like its founder show. And then another movie that apparently came out recently, UK independent film from last year, which is Red Kingdom Rising, which, based off of what I read about it, I probably really want to see, but I'm not that familiar with it, so I can't say for sure. It's also been adapted into music, most famously Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit, and it's probably 2 or 3 dozen covers. There's plenty of musical adaptations. Another one that was more recent, for those who like Melanie Martinez, I do like her song Mad Hatter. And then, although I do have problems with Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, the soundtrack Almost Alice is kind of fun, even if I can't listen to most of it. Robert Smith did I Give Myself Very Good Advice, which was really, really silly. Franz Ferdinand did The Lobster Quadrille, which was quite funny, and all of these different songs that are based quite thoroughly off of the original story. Then there's just pop culture references everywhere. It's been such a foundation of the English-speaking world. It's crazy that it's lasted this long and had this much impact. And, I mean, they've made references to it that's kind of like having to deal with exploration or insanity in films such as The Matrix and Girl Interrupted. And it's just the strangest thing that it's persisted so long and people have been able to attach it to so many different things. And then there's just these little things that are inside of the books that I find very fascinating. Like, for example, the Mad Tea Party, which is hosted by the March Hare and the Mad Hatter, and the main reason why both of them are mad is that hares in March have a very particular mating ritual where they basically go batshit crazy, and people thought that they literally lost their little tiny fuzzy minds, and hence the term March Hare, meaning crazy, and Mad Hatter having to do with the fact that hatters would use mercury to felt top hats, and the mercury poisoning ended up causing delirium and early death through insanity. So that's where Mad as a Hatter comes from. There's all this crazy nonsense in there that works really well. It always bothers me when people are just like, I wonder what Lewis Carroll was smoking when he wrote these. Like, these books are very carefully thought out. Charles Dodgson was a mathematician. He was very smart, and even though he was clumsy and stuttered and was very shy, He was also a very capable writer and a very smart guy. There was a lot of controversy about his attachment to the Little family. Alice Little is the basis of the character, even though they look nothing alike. And he's a weird guy, anyway. Those books are fascinating and can be looked at in a very analytical manner, especially because there's a lot of metaphors, there's a lot of references to the current goings-on in English society when they were written. If you don't believe me, I do suggest picking up a copy of the Annotated Alice, which is the way that I read it the first time all the way through as an adult, and I found it very interesting and very insightful to a lot of the background on the story. There's references to all kinds of things with the walrus and the carpenter and the lion and the unicorn and all this crazy, crazy stuff that just goes back far into England's history and has since persisted through these two crazy books. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for clarifying my thoughts on the Alice in Wonderland series. Till next time, Darklings.